Hello, and welcome to another episode of the DevLab podcast brought to you by hackajob. Today, we're joined by Mike Petty, who is the ACTP CNO Technical Director at MANTECH. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Before we delve into it, just a bit of context on who MANTECH are, and then we'll jump into the conversation with Mike. So MANTECH is more than a technology company. It's a mission-driven organization dedicated to serving the public trust. From enhancing national security to supporting veterans and advancing healthcare, MANTECH's work directly impacts the safety and well-being of communities. Today, we're joined by Mike to chat through cybersecurity, past, present, and future. So Mike, let's get into it. You've had a really unique journey into cybersecurity. Could you tell us a little bit more about your career path and your current role at MANTECH?
Yeah, Phil, so the journey has been a little bit unique. We could talk for hours upon this. But for just a quick little aside, prior to joining MANTECH, I was an Army officer in the United States Army, 6 years. Prior to that, an instructor at, we call it a high school level, right? So high school instructor for 10 years. I did everything on the physical science side of the house. So forensics, food science, physics, chemistry, physical science is what we would call that. And really was allowed to kind of develop my skills as an instructor during that time, as well as dive into the coaching market. So I did a little bit of coaching for 6 of those 10 years and learned how to develop team, right? And build team and drive team and be able to delegate, right? And so I took those skills that I learned, applied those when I joined the Army a little bit later than most people do, 33 when I joined. And that was really kind of a funny story, Phil. When I joined the military, I chose to go enlisted because I wanted to pick my job. And I was hoping to do something in the physical science or forensics or criminal investigation side of the house. And that wasn't available at the time in the military because of the restrictions that they had. And so as I was speaking with the recruiter, I said, what's something that is dynamic, something that is, the new trend? It's the hardest thing that the military would offer, or it's something that's going to really put me at the top compared to, everybody else is going through this process. And he said, well, you're interested in forensics, you're interested in investigation. Why not do cyber? And I said, well, I have a background, I like computers. We use them quite a bit, especially with presentation, and data collection and analysis and things like that. And so I said, all right, let's do it. Let's do cyber. And I think I'll be pretty good at that. And so join the military, day one of military training, talked to the drill sergeant and they said, wow, you're ridiculously old. Why did you join the military at 33? And I said, well, I'm just kind of a late bloomer. I haven't figured out what I want to do yet. And he said, well, you used to be a high school teacher. Why did you join the military? And I said, well, I wanted to get away from all the 18-year-olds, which was 40 of the people that I was in the platoon with. I made the drill sergeants laugh day one. And it was just kind of game on from there, right? I took everything that I could learn from the cybersecurity of the house. I was the new guy. I was the young buck. These people coming in had way more experience than I did. And these were the people that were my quote unquote, not only competition, but the people that I was supposed to be ultimately in charge of. And so for me, there was a lot of pressure to jump that learning curve and put myself at least at their level. And I found that a really awesome challenge, right? And did the best I could for those 6 years, was able to really gain a lot of knowledge from the people that I was in charge of, which in this career field is pretty unique, right? In most normal jobs, you apprentice, you have a supervisor, they're the kind of technical expert of the house, and you learn what they know, and then you apply that, and then you take their job. And this was a little different. I was able to take what I knew from the leadership side of the house and the teaching side of the house and the organization side of the house, and add to that all of the knowledge and experience and upcoming trends that these young cyber bucks knew about. And that helped me in my career. And then out of the military, I wanted to get back into training. I wanted to get back into instruction. And we had done some training with ACTP. That's the Advanced Cyber Training Program here with MANTECH. And I really liked the way that they disseminated information and ran their structure. And so that was the group that I interviewed with coming out of the military. I took that position, was able to do some instruction for about 3 years with them, and have recently become the technical director for the program. So now I'm kind of back in the position that I was before, in charge of these wealth of knowledge instructors that are coming in and kind of leading from the front everything that is now cyber capability.
Fantastic. And just to kind of dwell on that a little bit, what do you think are some of the main transferable skills you took from your Army days into your role at MANTECH?
Yeah, absolutely. And anybody that has been in any organization where it comes to leadership, a ranking system, start at the bottom, move to the top. You bring humility. You bring that idea of, there's a lot that we have to learn. And even on the cyber side of the house, Phil, I mean, how many languages do we operate in? How many platforms do we have? What's the difference? Now we're bringing AI into the mix. We've got everything mobile now. It's a constant learning curve. And so I can come in and say, hey, I've got, 6 years of working on a Windows system. And that makes me no such expert on the Linux side of the house, right? Or on the IoT side of the house or AI side of the house. And so if, this is kind of a pitch to those that are interested in getting into cyber, and I know we might be jumping forward in questions a little bit, but what an amazing opportunity to consistently be learning on the back end, right? And then applying the knowledge that you have in a real world scenario. And for those people that are looking for dynamic jobs and just an opportunity to constantly be in the mix of things, cyber is the new trend, right? And I think that was one of the reasons why I was really interested when they said, hey, what do you want to dive into? Knowing that even though I'm a little bit older, I can still do this for 20, 30 years and gain a wealth of knowledge. And then how would we disseminate that, right? How would we give that to the upcoming generations? So I think right now kind of the most unique things and the biggest trends are take what you learn from whatever job you're in, military, training, education, even on the education side of the house, and use that to apply to cyber, knowing that it's going to be a constant educational battle. The faster I can learn that, the more I can apply it, the more real world I can do, the better I'm going to be at that. But then at the same time, I need to be able to turn around and also educate the others of my knowledge.
Fantastic. Yeah, really well said. Grit, determination, curiosity, these are all skills that you can apply in any walk of life, right? And will help you get to where you need to get to. And we're going to delve into this as we go further into the pod. But what I wanted to kind of focus on now was just how the cybersecurity landscape has changed over the years. So what was it like when you first got into the field, and what do you think are the big steps forward or the big evolutions that you've seen in your time in the industry?
Yeah, it's a great question, Phil. And I think I'd like to maybe kind of use ACTP as an example, right? This was something that was founded back in 2009. So we've been around for almost 16 years. And obviously 16 years ago, the proprietary was cyber is a niche. It's something that only a selective few do, right? Not a lot of people know about it. It is more of the kind of hackers of the world unite. And the things that we dabble in will be just stuff that we've played around with, toys from Radio Shack, if you would, right? And now it's completely changed. The landscape is all the colleges are talking about it. Everybody's wanting it. The military demands it. It's a need. It's no longer a niche. It's an absolute must. And then as you bring in AI, now all of your big businesses are utilizing this, right? How can we streamline? How can we automate? How can we speed things up? How can we be more efficient? How can we ultimately save time to get to the final product? And so with all of that technology that's coming in, and devices are becoming smaller, they're becoming more mobilized, and we can do everything with those things now. When the QWERTY keyboard came out on the Blackboard or on the BlackBerry a couple years ago, that was the new trend. And then the iPhone came out in 2000 and the world just exploded. Right? Communication was instant gratification, instant answer, instant satisfaction. You could get all of that information at your fingertips. Dewey Decimal disappeared. The concept of hard books at a library disappeared. You could just have it all in front of you. Well, with that comes security flaws, right? It comes vulnerabilities. It comes social engineering platforms are now widespread. And so it becomes more of we need to educate. We need to make sure that people understand what's valid and what's not valid. How do we incorporate things like AI into the mix, but do it safely and soundly? That's the biggest challenge nowadays. Is 15 years ago, AI was a cool thing that you did. Cyber was a cool thing that you did. Having technology like an iPhone would be an amazing thing that just made you a little bit more popular than your neighbor down the street. Now it's everybody has it. So who uses it the best? Who uses it the right way? And then for those actors, who uses it nefariously, and how do we combat that?
Yeah, 100%. And you touched on it earlier, right? With the kind of old stereotype of hackers working in basements, and now they're working in big corporate offices, and it's a huge part of the world that we live in. And I think it's something that we've seen on our side as well. I was chatting to Athena, who's also from ManTech on an earlier episode, and the two areas we've seen real job growth in over the last 18 to 24 months with the advent of AI is, of course, on the data side, the AI side, the ML side, but also on the security side, right? Because security's got to keep pace with all of those different advancements in AI, right? You can't be leaving fallibilities and entry points while you're working at this pace.
And Phil, you're talking about, I mean, it's not new technology. It's been around, but it's new technology for the masses. And so you present this product and you say, hey, we've got this, this new AI that it'll streamline your process. It'll do all these things for you. It'll make your business more effective. And everybody's immediate response is, let's jump in. This is going to make us money. If this is going to save us time, let's do it. And then you have kind of a take the risks as the reward and not really think about it. And decisions are made quickly, right? And so, like you said, Phil, you're seeing a rise in the security as well on this side because there's a lot of uncertainty and questions that are coming with it. And it's a great product, but maybe we haven't tested it as much as we should have. And we get it out there and it's a new thing and it's awesome. And we kind of say, well, we'll just kind of deal with the problems down the road, right? Think about it in terms of like a gaming industry, and I put a game out there. Well, what do we do now? We beta test the game. Here's a free, everybody can hop on and do this so we can find the bugs and we can fix it so we can put the game out and make a bunch of money. And not necessarily all the bugs are fixed, right? So we start the game, we enjoy it, we come back, we patch it up, and then ultimately the game then works flawlessly. Same concept with AI. It's just like another video game. And we just got to make sure that we're doing that the right way. So you're seeing that increase of not only AI devs, but also the security side of the house to make sure that we're, like you said, even playing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And look, that brings us really nicely to the present. So, with all of these pressing cyber threats, how can organizations prepare for them? How do you get ahead of these things?
Well, I mean, the first one is we have to make sure we understand that it's not going anywhere, right? It's going to be there. So, education, training, making sure that everybody is aware that AI is going to be in the mix. One of the biggest things that, for ACTP that we talk about is how do we incorporate this into our curriculum? How do we bring this in and do it the right way? And initially, 4 or 5 years ago, it was, we just won't, we just won't do it. It'll be not allowed. That's not an option anymore, Phil. It is there. So we have to develop with the times and change with the new trends. And again, we just happen to be lucky because we're an educational company. Like that's what we do. That's our program, is to teach people how, we'll bring in AI, but we're going to teach you the right way. And we're going to do it the right way. And we're going to tell you what's, when we should and when we shouldn't, and how to do that properly to reduce vulnerabilities and to not cause problems with whoever's going to ask you to kind of incorporate this into their program. So the first thing is just being very candid to know that the new trends are here. They're here to stay. They're not going anywhere. How do you best adapt to those? I think that's the biggest kind of new thing that we have to pay attention to. The other ones are, what are the increases that we've seen when it comes to the cyber side of the world? There's a bigger demand for mobile. There's a bigger demand for cloud-based. And so if everything's going cloud, there's going to be vulnerabilities with that, right? And so you have pros and you have cons, and you just have to be aware that the product is going to drive. It's going to drive higher. It's going to drive motivation. It's going to drive innovation. It's going to drive training. And so, So I think that's kind of the biggest thing that we need to pay attention to. And that might kind of transition us to the next side of the house, which is, where do all the vulnerabilities come into play? Where's the biggest cyber threat because of all that information, right? And, in today's trend, 2025 and 26, you're still dealing with social engineering. It's always going to be there. It's not going anywhere. And now with so many people just saying, I'll just blanket accept whatever AI tells me. A good analogy is Wikipedia back in the day. Wikipedia came out. Everybody was really, this is amazing. What a wealth. This is great encyclopedia of everything that we need to know. And then in the background, all the security people were saying, hey, be careful. This is important. You need to validate that it's good. Anybody can contribute to this. And now Wikipedia is a reliable source. It's what people use because there's so many contributors to that, so many eyes on Wikipedia now. That's kind of where we're going with AI. There's so many eyes on it, cybersecurity, so many eyes on the concept of social engineering, state attacks, ransomware is still an issue that's going on, and then everything that you could think of when it comes to AI-powered cyber attacks, right? So you really have to be mindful of, you have the product and you have some issues with it, vulnerabilities that could be part of that. I think, again, number one, training and education is always going to be at the top.
Yeah, for sure. Next, I want to kind of take the conversation a little bit more global and really thinking about national security. So, Mike, obviously, you'll know better than anyone that your role at ManTech isn't just a security role that, the same sort of security role you might find in an e-commerce company, where, of course, it's super important to make sure the system is secure. Your customers' data is to be guarded. But ManTech are obviously playing a crucial role in, looking after national security, looking after veterans, healthcare, all of these important applications of technology. How is cybersecurity influencing national security today?
Well, it's in the mix, right? It's everywhere. I mean, we sit down and you can speculate all you want about what the next war is going to be and how are the battles going to take place and is it going to be cyber and is there going to be cyber attacks? We've already seen evidence of that. If we look
Yeah.
in the news and we kind of see what's happening, the goal is to save money and take the enemy out as fast as possible. And if I destroy infrastructure, if I turn the lights off, if I prevent communication, we've seen examples, and this is not the podcast to kind of explain those, but like we've seen examples just recently in the past with, FFA, airline companies, different things like that, where crash is catastrophic. Because again, so many people have incorporated this into their daily lives that when stuff hits the fan, I'm not worried about that because we just assume that everything's going to work the way that it's supposed to. So when you're talking about global, I mean, e-commerce, trade, big pictures of supply chain, supply demand, movement of product, all that is being driven now by cost-effective automation to save money, save time, reduce labor costs, reduce timing, faster communication across whatever ponds you're dealing with. That brings in cyber. That brings in vulnerability possibilities. And so not only do we have to look at it from locking ourselves down, from a nation, if you would, but we also have to worry about when we have these communications, with other countries and other partners and whatever we're trying to do. If that could ever get intercepted, we run into problems. If that could ever get modified or manipulated, it'd be very easy for us to, play the game of telephone, if you would. And by the time it gets to the third person, it's changed completely. So I think for us, when it comes to a global platform, it's how does everything that we do nationally set us up for proper relations with our global partners? And if we haven't shown that we're able to be on the defense and properly trained and have the educational programs in place to properly put these new technologies into the mix, we're going to suffer, right? And so right now, I think it's everybody globally trying to figure out how do I use this properly, but at the same time, use that in my, country to country communications. It's just a grand scale, Phil. I mean, it's a massive highway that everybody's using now. We just got to do it the right way.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And look, we've already kind of dwelt on AI a little bit, so it may be that you feel like we've already kind of covered this topic, but we focus a lot on the risks of AI. What are the opportunities you see in AI? Do you feel like AI does bring opportunities within the world of cybersecurity as well as risks?
Yes, I love that question because, we tend to, like you said, we tend to kind of look at the negatives. And as a company or as a program that teaches, the balance of how to defend against things and to prep for things and to analyze, where there could be flaws or vulnerabilities or how to mitigate those, sometimes we forget about the positives that those could bring in as well. Right. And so that again goes back to the conversation we had earlier, where we decided instead of getting rid of or instead of denying the ability to use AI, how do we do it the right way? And how do we make it positive on our end? Well, the automation side of the house is huge, right? Streamlining the process of getting at least a skeleton of code done. And so for our students, I'll give you an example. We say, okay, we'll bring in AI, and you can use an LLM or whichever one you tend to prefer. And maybe we restrict those to kind of certain LLMs that we validated, but we can come back and say, all right, I'm okay with you producing skeleton code, right? To get the very basics done that everything's going to get done anyway. We won't get into super, nerdy computer programming concepts, but your loop and your includes, those are all going to be done in a certain way, blanket, no matter what you're writing. But then let's also make sure that we go back and we fine grain this. Let's analyze. And so for us, it's what can AI do for us to speed it up, but also understand that there are things that we still need to check. Bodies will always be correct. Bodies will be the ones that, until we have some machine learning that's going to organically grow and be able to think like a human, which we all know that we're kind of getting there. It's still ultimately our decision to go back and validate that everything's done the right way. So there's a huge perk of AI when it comes to software development, and just the ability to produce a mass quantity of code that we could then go test against, linters and formatters, and making sure that everything's properly done. So yeah, hopefully that kind of gives you some insight on, we definitely don't want to get rid of the technology. We want to use it, but we need to make sure we understand that there are certain things that we just can't let AI do right now.
Yeah, for sure. I think it brings a new poignancy to the term, with great power comes great responsibility. There is great power, but we have to use it responsibly. We have to use it in the right way. Really, really well summarized. So now looking ahead, right? Looking ahead to the future. I think we've already touched on what companies can do to kind of prevent things and get ahead of things and prepare for the future. But as individuals, as professionals within the world of cybersecurity, how do you stay ahead of it? How do you learn? How do you stay on top of, perhaps new threats that are coming out? Like, what's your process there?
Well, obviously, I like podcasts, right? So that's why we're having this conversation. Conferences are huge. Any way to face collaborate, I think, is still extremely important, right? We've gone into this whole virtualized, remote, self-paced kind of hide myself back in the hotel room corner, and I can learn all day long. I mean, that's great. I can watch podcasts. I can subscribe to your TED Talks. We can look at research and documentation all day long. But the two things for us on our neck of the woods is time on keyboard. So getting on keyboard, writing the code, immersing yourself into the mix, seeing what those things are doing. That's number one. Like you have to do that, and you have to do it consistently. And so for us, our program, we tout that our instructors do the job. So everybody that we bring in to instruct, they're doing the job on the side. They're writing the code, they're developing the labs, they're going through the program, they're doing things for other projects to make sure that they're up to speed when it comes to what we're disseminating to the student. That's number one, just time on keyboard. Number two is looking at the landscape and seeing, where do I best fit in, right? So Phil, if you and I sat down and I would ask you, hey, what are you really interested in right now? And you'd say, oh, I love the concept of Rust. It's the new greatest language ever. Let's use it. Awesome. Well, I'll give you the time to develop your skills on Rust. But at the same time, I'm going to come back to you a couple months or a couple years down the road and say, hey, we still use C. We still use assembly. That stuff's still extremely important for us. So how are you maintaining your level of skill? And it could be through conferences. It could be through education. We absolutely encourage our instructors to pursue higher ed, to go through some classes just for refresh. Obviously, all the certifications that other customers tend to have or want or need or companies are asking for, those are things that we still look at and we still go through. So to answer your question, Phil, like I told you at the very beginning, this is a growing landscape. It's never going to change. You can learn all day long and still only learn a fraction. So for us, it's doing it until you get on the keyboard and do it. And for us, the live contribution, I think, is really huge. And so we prefer to teach live. We prefer to have the one-on-one engagement. I want to see over your shoulder when you're making the mistake or have a question. I want to watch that. I want to sit down with you and walk you through that. So as those, whoever's watching this podcast and saying, how can I make myself better? We can read all day long. That's great. But if you're not applying it, we got a problem, right? And in this day and age, yeah, I'll do some stuff for you. We can bring in some automation for you, but ultimately, you're still the one that's producing the tool. And so you need to know about it. You need to be in the weeds. You need to look at the man pages. You need to dig into the documentation. You need to take time to write that. You need to piece those markdown files together so somebody like Phil could come back and sit down on your program and go, I know what this is talking about. I know how to use this because ample information has been provided to what I'm building. And so we're really big on time on keyboard, time with each other, and taking the time to research and produce good code with good backing so somebody else could come along and, be privy to that information.
Awesome. I think some really good advice there, really tangible, practical advice for anyone out there listening in at any stage in the career, but certainly anyone who's thinking about starting out, getting their foot in the door, taking that first step. Yeah, look, the theory exists for a reason. It's great to read up on the theory. That's where we start. But for sure, putting that into practice and being prepared to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes, there's absolutely no substitute for sure. If we think about advancements within the world of cybersecurity, are there any innovations? Are there any things that really kind of get you excited that you're really looking forward to playing around with yourself at the moment?
So I'm a little different, right? Because I'm on the tech director side of the house. So I'm a little bit more for providing these opportunities for my instructors, right? Giving them the resources that they need to become better at delivery. So when what I'm excited about really is the trends that I can then disseminate to my instructors. So right now, we keep bringing back AI, but we do know that AI and cloud are massive. So any trainings that I can provide on cloud infrastructure, how we can apply that to our program. The concept of containerization, virtualization is always really big for us. We do a lot of virtual training. So we say we like to teach live, and as much as we can, we will. But we also allow, a hybrid or a remote approach. How can we still make that feel like it's one-on-one, right? Still feel like the customer gets a live engagement where we're not just saying, do the code, step back, and then from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., somebody will be standing there if you want to ask them a question. We want it to be an engaging process. That wasn't possible 10 years ago, and it is now, right? So the concept of Zooming and podcasts and being on Teams and being able to have this engaging conversation, we really want that. The second thing that's big for us is behavior analytics, right? What I want to know, Phil, is when you write your code, how much time are you spending on that project? How does it compare to somebody else, right? If it's taking everybody in our class 2 hours to complete this lab, but it's taking you 30 minutes, why? And you may have something that you can bring to the table that we don't know about. Are you using an LLM? Did you just know your stuff, right? On the side, what if it's taking you 6 hours? So for us, behavior analytics of how do we help you earlier? How do we pinpoint where your struggles are? There's trainings out there that are allowing us to do that. There's vendors out there that we're able to partner with that allow us to get those analytics. For us, it's what does the customer want, right? They want to see Phil in action. They want to see how well Phil does. But more importantly, it's not the 100 that matters. It's how did he get to 100, right? So for us, it's the investigation of and incorporation of all of these behavior analytics that allow us to see the thought process as you went from code scratch to code completion. And that's what I'm most excited about because I'm a data-driven, numbers don't lie type of guy, ex-coach, right? You're either going to make the bucket or not make the bucket, make the shot, not make the shot, kick the goal, not make the goal. For me, numbers don't lie. So as we start to see the analytics behind your code, we're going to be able to go to the customer and say, hey, Phil's A+, not because he made 100, but because he's he's efficient on the steps that need to be taken to produce 1 to 0. And Phil brought in AI, so he's going to streamline it for you, but he's going to do it at a faster pace and still fact check. And that's the biggest component for us. So for me personally, I think it's the usage of these AI engines to produce the behavior analytics behind the code that's being disseminated or taught in our classrooms.
That's awesome. That's super interesting. If you don't mind me asking, how is that received? I suppose it comes down to the culture that you've built in terms of how people receive and perceive that, because to some people that might sound threatening, right? To some people that might sound I don't know, intrusive into their day-to-day work, right? People like to feel like they're already doing their best work. But I think for those with the growth mindset, surely it's something that they welcome. So it'd be great to get your take on that.
Yeah, I'll give you a super example. Right? Things that, a common phrase is a doctor's a doctor, right? Go through med school, you become a doctor, you say you're a doctor. But guess what? In this line of work, there's a difference between a cybersecurity expert and a cybersecurity expert. There's a difference between a software developer and a software developer. And so, cool, we can all say that we're doctors, but I want the doctor that's thinking. I want the doctor that's going through the process. And I can sit down and ask at any point of this process, where were you at step 3? How did you get to step 4? Because we're in a fight. Everything that we're doing on our side of the house is directed towards a niche that involves cyber protection and cyber attack. And so for us, we have to know your thought process when we send you to the people that we service. And that's what they want to know. So this has been driven by a conversation with the customers. They want this. They want to know what their student or their soldier or their person or their worker is thinking. They want to know that information behind the thought process so they can be assured that when Phil sits in the seat, he's doing it the right way, the way that we want. and a way that's going to produce the fastest and the best result. And so for us, that's really the big push is you can say you're a software developer, but guess what? When you come through our program, I'm going to know at what level you're a software developer. And that's what really matters to the customer. At least for us, right? Now, there are some companies that it doesn't matter. I just need a guy to type code. I just need a gal to do things, right? Scrape the database, make some queries, do whatever needs to happen. But that's not true for every business, right? And so for us, when we're talking about cybersecurity, when we're talking about all of the red and blue team things, we're really focused on the thought process.
Yeah. No, for sure. And look, I think the best of the best want to work with the best of the best, right? If you see that everyone else in the team is keeping to those standards and pushing to hit those standards, and you're working with people that you really respect in that sense, then it raises everyone's level. So no, I think it's incredible, and I think with the industry you're in and we touched on it a bit earlier, I suppose the importance and the significance of the work that you're doing, not just for the profits of a company, but for national security, for these big concepts. I think it's awesome to hear, the level of quality that you're pushing for and striving for. Yeah, it's awesome.
And we can go back to the statement just to make sure we kind of shore that up, right? When I say doctor, if I feel like if our group of instructors see that you're struggling, that's a win for us because we can attack that immediately, right? And that's the other piece is not everybody knows it all. I didn't. I'm the perfect example. So we're driving this innovation because of people like me who struggled coming in. If I would have had somebody that could identify that quickly, because I couldn't. I wasn't a software developer. So how could I know if I'm struggling or not? Who am I comparing myself to? So my question that I always had to the instructor was, well, where am I compared to everybody else? Am I behind? Am I ahead? Am I right on target? Where's my rubric, if you would, of how successful I'm being? And that wasn't something that could always be answered. If I would have known that I was 6 hours behind or 3 days behind or 2 months behind, that's the decision tree of, do you put in the extra work to catch up, or do you just kind of fall behind, between the cracks? Well, we don't want that for anybody, obviously. So for us, it's if we can see, the instructors can see where you're at immediately, we know how to best approach that. And for the customer, that should be a win, right? Because they know that we're going to be attentive to not as a whole, but the individual needs during the progression of the class, right? So we offer a 10-week class. I don't want to know where you're at in week 8. I want to know where you're at 10 hours into the class. And so that's where this kind of plays a role.
Fantastic. The kind of penultimate question I had was really focusing on someone who's looking to break into the industry. And look, I think across this episode, we've touched on so many great, tangible, practical pieces of advice for anyone junior or at any stage in their career. And so, I think we've already shared a lot of wisdom. But what do you think the smartest way is to get started?
Yeah, I think the first thing is you really have to ask yourself, is this something that I'm really interested in? Not for the money. I mean, obviously we're in a career field that's a high demand, and anything that's high demand has the potential to be pretty lucrative, right? But are you in this because you want to make a difference? You really want to learn and challenge yourself and educate yourself to be the best that you can be. That's the first question you have to ask yourself. The second one you have to ask yourself is, are you okay with not being the best? Because you're going to come in and someone's going to be better than you. They're going to know more than you. They've been doing this a lot longer than you. I love talking to people that program on Fortran. That's this programming language way back in the day. And they'll tout, hey, I'm the best of the best. I have high respect for that. Do we care? Do we use it? Does it matter? No. But the fact that you've been doing this for 30 years, you're a god, right? I want to know that. I want to soak that information up. So you need to come in humble. You need to come in hungry. You need to come in ready to work. And if you're okay with that constant knowledge of, I can push myself for 10 years and maybe know a microcosm of what it is to be a developer or, something on the cybersecurity side of the house, then this is a great career field for you. The second recommendation I would make is learn the policies behind this, right? Because, for example, we teach software developers, but we tie ourselves into the cyber and cybersecurity practices. And so coming out, you could be a really good developer, but know nothing about the policies of software development from a cybersecurity standpoint. So you'll see a lot of people, they'll have a bachelor's degree in computer science or computer engineering, and then they'll have a master's degree in cybersecurity. That's a really smart route to go because you're getting the best of both worlds. And that's what we really need. We're going to need leaders. We're going to need policymakers. We're going to need those people at more of a political type level to make those ultimate decisions on what we're doing in cyber land. So great, I could write code all day long, but if I can't disseminate that information and make logical decisions on that information, we're going to be in a world of hurt moving forward. So being two-tiered is really, really smart. And I would highly recommend that. So knowing about your policies, investigating about what drives this software development, being hungry and being ready to work, those are really important pieces. And then knowing ultimately that there's a lot of opportunity to self-learn. So if I could do some self-learning before I ever jump in the field, figure out what you really like. If you're pumped about Python, learn Python. If you love the concept of Jupyter notebooks or you want to learn some AWS, there's plenty of information out there where you could just do some self-analysis, learn it, decide what you like, maybe narrow it down to one or two topics initially, and then jump in. So kind of like putting your little pinky toes in the swimming pool before you decide to jump in. Sometimes that's a little bit better than just going for the plunge, right?
Fantastic. Yeah. Look, really, really well said. And look, for anyone out there listening in, I think, again, some really, really good tangible advice there for everyone to take away. And not just if you're looking to break into cybersecurity. To be honest, I would say any industry, any role you're going for, you can take something from that advice. Even on the policy side of things, right? Understanding the why, understanding why you're doing this and what the purpose is behind the code you're writing is always something that you should really focus on, I think.
And I know that, Phil, that sounds cliche, right? I mean, it's like you said, that's in every industry. So there's a reason, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason that is the statement in every industry. It's just so many people are trying to find a way different, a way out from that, a shortcut, if you would. And in this field, especially, we're not looking for shortcuts. We want to do it the right way. We want to do it the best way because it's always more difficult to go back and try to fix once we've made the mistake, especially in this field.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Mike, this has been an absolute pleasure. We've had a whistle-stop tour of the world of cybersecurity. So thank you so much. Let's end with a bold prediction. What's your bold prediction for the future of cybersecurity?
Man, how many devices do we have in our house right now? Like it used to be one and now it's 6 to 7. I think it's going to integrate into everything, right? Super excited about the glasses that do all the AI stuff when you're walking around. It's going to be everywhere, right? And so it goes back to what we said before. It's not going away. It's going to be in everything. Don't fall behind on the curve. So really get yourself in the mix. If you're weak on this stuff, if it's new to you, got to get a taste for it because it's not going away. It's going to be the new water, right? I think that's the bold prediction is we're going to see it everywhere. All the businesses, big businesses are already using it. I think it's going to trickle down to all the small businesses. So if you're a small business owner, faster you can dive into this stuff, the faster your business can grow. So certainly want to get in the mix that way. And then for international communication, 100%, this is going to be the wave of the future. And knowing that information will protect you from all of the things that these cyber attackers are trying to do. They're trying to exploit you any way possible. Right now, it's through your phone, it's through your email, it's through communication, it's through your ransomware, it's through this. Oh my goodness, your airline canceled this. Click on this. That's never going away. So embrace it, learn it, love it, drink it, because it's going to be everywhere. That's the bold prediction. Phil, we hope that doesn't end badly, right? That's what we're really worried about. So the more we can learn and the more we can prepare ourselves, the better we're going to be if there is an issue that comes up in the near future.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. Excellent. Look, Mike, thank you so much for all these points today. Like, as I said, it's been a whistle-stop tour. We've covered all sorts of different topics. But no, you've been a phenomenal guest on the podcast. And as I said, I've shared so much wisdom for anyone out there listening in. Before we do wrap up, is there anything else you haven't had the chance to cover? Anything else you wanted to highlight or touch on before we do finish up?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. Again, I want to thank you, Phil, for letting me jump on board here. This has been a blast. I do appreciate the fact that you guys took the time to interview Athena as well. I think women in the workplace, especially on the cyber side of the house, is massively important because we are trying to expand to all generations, all genders, all walk of life. It is that important of a career field and it's that pressing of a demand. We want to make sure that we understand that everybody has really good ideas. And the more that we can collaborate, talk with each other, get those ideas on the table, the better we're going to be as a whole, right? So thank you for letting me come on and do this. I do want to give just a shout out to all the instructors that work with ACTP and the leadership team. Obviously couldn't do that without you. We're super excited about the growth that's coming up in the future and can't wait to have more of these podcasts, Phil. So if you ever want to come across the water, we got you. I got you a spot in the class, ready to go right now. Teach you some assembly tomorrow.
Excellent. I hope that opportunity is on the table because yeah, I'd love to pop over and find out more and as I said, delve more into some of the ways that you're building that culture, that really high performing culture, and passing that on through your training schemes because I think it's something that businesses and professionals across lots of different industries could certainly take something from. Thanks once again, Mike. Thank you so much for joining us today. And obviously, thank you to everyone out there listening in. As ever, check out the podcast description. We'll make sure all of the relevant links are in there so that you can get in touch with MANTECH and find out more about the cool projects, the interesting innovations that they're working on, and of course, the importance of everything they're doing to healthcare, national security, public trust, all of these different very, very important concepts that are super relevant within the world of cybersec today. So thanks to everyone listening. Thanks again to Mike, and please check out the podcast description, and we'll see you next time. Thanks all.